Hello, everyone, and welcome. Welcome back to Oba's Trending Gist, where we break down the hottest political stories making waves across Nigeria. Today, we have an explosive one for you. The political scene has been set on fire by a press conference held by Dumebi Kachikwu, the 2023 presidential candidate of the African Democratic Congress (ADC). He has come out with a monumental allegations accusing former Vice President Atiku Abubakar of orchestrating a fraudulent takeover of his party for a 2027 presidential bid. But that's not all. Kachukwu also dropped a bombshell allegation involving former President Goodluck Jonathan and Labour Party's Peter Obi that could change the dynamics of the next election cycle. Is this a genuine conspiracy or the political move of a lifetime? We are about to find out. First, let us watch a key part of what Mr. Kachukwu had to say. So sit back and take a watch.
A few weeks ago, I had warned that a group of mostly old former political office holders were executing a carefully orchestrated agenda to take over the ADC to prosecute Atiku Abubakar's presidential ambition come 2027. I also warned that Peter Obi and other presidential hopefuls in this coalition of geriatrics were being duped as Atiku's men had been carefully positioned to take over the ADC party structure across the country. Today, I have been proven right as former Governor Obi and his people now realize that this coalition is indeed a one-man power grab. Former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, a man who claims affinity and friendship with the South, does not believe any Southerner deserves to be president of Nigeria. Former Presidents Obasanjo and Jonathan are alive to attest to this uncomfortable truth. In their desperation to hijack the ADC, they deliberately perpetrated fraud, of which I now present evidence to you today. I have here before you terms of settlement entered as judgment in the Court of Appeal of Nigeria, holding at Port Harcourt, with appeal number CAPH 2252023 between the ADC, Chief Rafonsu, Engineer Eddie Lawrence as appellants, and some of the ADC state chairmen as respondents. What is the fraud, you may ask? To use the ADC, they needed to free it of all legal encumbrances, such as those challenging Rafonsu's fraudulent claim to the chairmanship of the party. And so, they forged signatures of some of the chairmen who were not interested in the sale of the party and presented it to the court as terms of settlement, which the Court of Appeal adopted as judgment. I have here copies of said judgments and international passport copies of the chairmen whose signatures were forged. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, please compare the signature specimens. Our lawyers have dispatched petitions to the appropriate law enforcement agencies on this. This is Nigeria, where anything is possible. The same media less than 10 days ago covered and reported a supposed NEC meeting where the same David Mark was again appointed or anointed as chairman of the ADC. So, what are we to believe? When did former Senate President David Mark become the chairman of the ADC? Here is a copy of a letter written to INEC on the 29th of July 2025, wherein the same Rafonsu, who weeks before this had presented David Mark to the world as the new chairman of our party, is still signing his signature as national chairman of the ADC. What a joke. Nigerians are all watching the live coverage of a fraud so monumental and yet so stupid that it beggars belief. These men are following the law to correct their illegalities in full view of Nigerians, INEC, and the media. But nobody's asking questions because we're supposed to be a nation of anything goes. They have armed the weapons of religion, tongue, tribe, and poverty as they convince millions of poor Northerners that a Southern President Tinubu hates them and is the cause of their poverty. On a daily basis, they are spreading deliberate falsehoods against not only President Tinubu, but against all potential Southern aspirants like myself for the office of president. Peter Obi has been told in very clear terms that he will never get Northern votes as an Igbo man, and as such, he should accept to be Atiku's running mate. In order to weaken the South, they have now drafted in former President Jonathan into the race, who is alleged to be offering Peter Obi the position of coordinating minister of the economy for him to support his ambition. In all this, Nigerians are the losers because meritocracy, which can only thrive when ceteris paribus is in play.
Incredible stuff. Let us unpack the bombshell that Dumebi Kachikwu just dropped in that press conference. Let us break this down because he said a lot. Kachikwu's central claim is that a coalition of geriatrics led by former political office holders is executing a carefully orchestrated plan to hijack the ADC? And who does he say is the ultimate beneficiary of this plot? None other than former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, who he claims wants to use the ADC as a platform for his 2027 presidential ambition. To back this up, Kachikwu presents what he called evidence. He held up documents claiming they were terms of a settlement entered as a judgment in the Court of Appeal. He alleges that to clear the path for his takeover, the conspirators forged a signature of several ADC state chairmen on the court documents to settle all legal disputes challenging the party's leadership. He even brought out what he claimed were copies of passports to compare the allegedly forged signatures with the real ones. But here is where it gets even more interesting and directly impacts the 2027 calculations many are already making. Kachikwu alleges that this move is part of a grand scheme by the northern political elites to ensure a southerner does not become president. He claims that in order to weaken the South and split its votes, they have now drafted former President Goodluck Jonathan into the race. And here is the kicker. Kachikwu alleges that Jonathan has offered Peter Obi the position of a coordinating minister for the economy to convince Obi to drop his own 2027 presidential ambition and instead support a Jonathan's candidacy. In his words, and I quote, "They have now drafted in former President Goodluck Jonathan into the race, who is alleged to be offering Peter Obi the position of coordinating minister of the economy for him to support his ambition. This is a monumental claim. He is essentially saying that the opposition is being manipulated from within by powerful figures to predetermine the outcome of the 2027 election and sideline popular Southern candidate like Peter Obi. Now, my critical take, while Kachikwu's presentation was dramatic, we have to look at these claims with a political lens. First, the Atiku angle. Is it plausible that Atiku Abubakar would try to take over a small party like ADC? Why go through complex and messy process of hijacking another party? This raises questions about the motive. Is Kachikwu, who has had his own leadership tussle within the ADC, using Atiku's name to give weight to his own internal party battles? Now, let's address the most viral part of this claim, the claim about Jonathan and Peter Obi. Frankly, this is politically hard to believe, and here is why. Peter Obi built a formidable youth-driven movement in 2023, the Obedient Movement, which all of us knows, which was organic and independent. He emerged as a powerful thought force. It seems politically illogical for him to abandon that massive political capital to become a minister in an administration led by a former president. For Obi, the goal has always been the presidency, and his movement sees him as the principal, not a subordinate. From Jonathan's side, while his name is often floated, re-entering the presidential race and trying to co-opt a popular figure like Obi seems like a very complex and high-risk strategy. This rumor sounds more like a political tool. It could be a deliberate narrative being pushed to create confusion and division among the opposition, and specifically to dampen the morale of the Obedient Movement by suggesting their principal might settle for a lesser role. It aims to weaken their resolve ahead of 2027. Finally, we must look at Dumebi Kachikwu himself. Is he a whistleblower exposing grand conspiracy, or is he a politician trying to reclaim relevance by positioning himself as a victim of a high-level plot involving giants like Atiku and Jonathan? He thrusts himself back into national conversation. So, what we have here is a complex web of accusation. Dumebi Kachikwu has accused Atiku Abubakar of masterminding a fraudulent takeover of the ADC and further alleged a plot involving Goodluck Jonathan to sideline Peter Obi with a ministerial offer. These remain allegations, and very serious one at that. They have certainly stirred a political pot as we slowly inch towards 2027. But I want to know what you think. Do you believe there's any truth to these claims? Could you ever see a scenario where Peter Obi drops his ambition for a ministerial slot, not even a VP slot? Or is this all just political maneuvering to create chaos? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll be reading and replying. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, please hit that like button, subscribe to Oba's Trending Gist, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.